Hello. Well, hi everyone. This is our Google Hangout Live, and hopefully it will be showing up so everyone can see us. I'm just going to check in my browser to make sure that we are coming through. And if you're having any problems seeing us, just write something in the chat or tweet, and we will try and find a way to help you out. But let me just check on my other browser and make sure that all is well. Okay, well, as far as I can see, looking at the browser, everybody out there can see us, and it seems to be working. So I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar on how to apply for the AIDS conference. And we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to get started. We have essentially 3 of us here tonight, all in different roles. And the first person that I'm going to introduce you to is Jay Lee, and Jay Lee is going to help us fill questions tonight, and Jay Lee has also been working with us to ensure that people have the support that they need to apply to the conference. So here's a little more about Jay Lee. Jay Lee is currently engaged in national and international HIV/AIDS actions with Best Practices, that's my organization, and Jay Lee is advising on community-based research with our organization. As an advocate for sexual freedom rights, Z regularly volunteers time in academic sex research, activism, and teaching at national conferences, workshops on alternative sexuality. You can find many scientific and not so scientific opinions as Z, I don't know if I should read this, but I will, as Z blathers away on various podcasts. In 2019, Jay Lee plans to pursue a PhD in human sexuality research with an emphasis on sex work, disability, LGBTQI, and alternative sexuality. Anything you'd like to add, Jay Lee, or is that good?
That was lovely and as convoluted as I wrote it to be, so thank you.
Okay, good. So the other speaker, in addition to myself, and I'll introduce her first because she's going to speak first, is Monica Jones. And Monica Jones is now a, webinar veteran. We've done a couple of webinars together, and I know that she has done many other webinars in many other places. So Monica will be a great addition to this webinar and tell you more about the experience of going to an international AIDS conference. Monica is the founder of the Outlaw Project, which is a national project dedicated to putting marginalized communities first in sex worker rights activism. Monica is a long-term advocate for sex worker rights in Arizona and brought a constitutional challenge to the manifestation law in Arizona across a 2-year period. Monica is an artist and creator in many other ways and is a social worker. So Monica will be speaking first. And Monica's just getting to a good location where she has a strong internet signal. So until she gets here, until she gets to that spot where she has a good signal, I'll introduce myself. I'm Penelope Saunders. I'm the coordinator of the Best Practices Policy Project, and we are supporting this webinar today. We are a national organization representing sex worker rights in the United States. We do everything that we can to build capacity in organizing for sex worker rights, and also to create the environment where sex workers and sex worker rights can express themselves with safety and to their full expression. So the reason that I very much wanted to do this webinar with Jay Lee and Monica is because the AIDS conference itself has a lot of barriers, and there's many compelling reasons that we should be able to access the conference rather than being shut on the outside. It's a very challenging environment, but we need to be able to interface with it if we wish. I'm just going to check and see if Monica's gotten herself to a good location yet. Okay, I just sent her a message. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, as you watch this webinar, there's a chat. There should be a chat feature on the right-hand side, and please send us questions there. Jay Lee's going to be fielding questions. The other option is, and I'm going to check right now, send us questions to the email, which you've all been sent, which is HIVAIDSBPP@gmail.com, or you can tweet us. And in fact, I'm going to open up my Twitter on my phone. So tweet us at BTRIPPLE. That's BTRIPLEP. So tweet us there, and we will try and catch your questions there as well. Monica, are you ready?
Yeah, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. So I'm going to hand over, I'm going to turn my mic and camera off, and I'm going to hand this over to Monica, who's going to speak to you for about 10 to 15 minutes about why the AIDS conference, the International AIDS Conference, is important, what you can expect to see there, her experience with going to tell you more about the environment, and any, kind of give you an overview of how it will be and why you should apply. And then once Monica's spoken, I'm going to show you all how to log into the conference system and actually apply for an abstract. So both of these things go together, but Monica's going to start it.
Thank you, PJ. I think the first time, I'm going to give you a little backstory. I think the first time I heard about the AIDS conference was like the first 3 months after I met PJ. She's like, well, you want to come to my country for the AIDS conference? And I was like looking at her like, yeah, whatever. And during this time, my court case was going on and everything was chaotic in my life. And I think going to the AIDS conference for me was like a breath of fresh air because I made so much connections at the AIDS conference that was really great. And I think it's great for anyone to have that experience to who's doing advocacy work surrounding trans, sex worker, migrants, man and drug use, to have a seat at the AIDS conference because AIDS impacts so many communities. And so so filling out the grant process was pretty simple. I think me and PJ sat down for for an hour to write my grant application. And it was really great. It was really interesting, the questions they had to categorize you as. And it was very gender open and trans fluent and everything else. And so I think it was a really great application. And also applying for the Global Village was really nice because to apply for the abstract for the Global Village, it was like, I didn't even think I would get in to do it, the Global Village, but applying for the abstract and writing down for the what I did for my the Global Village and the Youth Village was super simple. I wrote down the event name. I wrote down a good paragraph of describing the event and group and everything else. And I went down and did a little bit more things. And we got accepted to the AIDS conference in 2014 in Australia. And it was really great because it was really amazing to see how people interacted and people come to the booth and talk. And like, so wherever your platform is, bring that to the AIDS conference. Bring business cards. Bring things that you would need, print flyers, print out everything. So even like if you have the expense, print out pamphlets about your work and share it with people. And I think it's very important that you guys have these extra equipment, not equipment, but extra supplies at the AIDS conference. And also, number one thing to do is make sure you have access to a telephone. And so making sure that for me, what I had to do in like before I had like a local carrier in the U.S. cricket, and I had to go get a burner phone. I think that's very important so you can keep in contact with people and every like moving from your hotel and everything else, so you won't just be solely reliant on Wi-Fi, which is very important. And I think also making sure that you step outside your comfort zone and go to these small meetings that they have at the conference all over. And even though like some of the Global Village talks are very important, but also they have some key talks in the main conference, which is usually outside the Global Village, and the main conference where all the doctors and lawyers and like all the people who do HIV medical stuff is very does. And so I think it's very important that you have access, but also moving back and forth to from the Global Village to the main conference. It's very can be very stressful because like you got to have your badge. It's very police in this way of like separated, but sometimes getting through it is okay. I think like the difference between age 24 and age 16, not age 14 and age 16, was like when we did it in Johannesburg, was very like Global Village in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, was free to the public. And I think the Global Village in South Africa wasn't free to the public, which created a lot of barriers to the population that we want to work with. And I felt like it was that we lost that connection where in the Global Village in Australia, we had school students coming in from school and doing everything. And because it was a school assignment, I think it was very important that even youth get involved into the conference and everything else. And so I think it's very great to have these connections. And also how I use the conference to build my platform was that I I got to do my intern with a major organization, sex worker organization in Australia, which is Scarlet Alliance. So I got to meet the CEO and employees at the AID conference, which it opened up these doors for me to do my internship there. And so I think that there's really great opportunities to meet people and meet contacts and resources and employers and future employers and everything else at these conferences, because I think that in the Global Village it's like grassroots organizations, but also in the main conference you might find that sponsor, that funder, or that research people that you might need to get research done for a group or a population within your community that you reach. So I think it's very important to have access to that. And some of the downsides of applying for grants and scholarships to the conference is that you might not get a full scholarship. So I think my first time going to Australia, I didn't get a full scholarship. I got airfare and registration. And so that was like, okay, I got that. But then when I went to South Africa, I got a full scholarship and everything else. And so I think sometimes it's hit and miss with the scholarships. And also with your abstracts, it's hit and miss, like for the Global Village and for the the main conference, because I put on this great abstract for a great panel and for the main conference, which got denied, but my global village got accepted. And so it's sometimes don't be afraid to do both, to apply for both. If your group or your organization or your target population and apply to both the main conference and the global village. And so I think it's very important that even if you don't get a scholarship, still try to apply, still try to work out some ways to get there if you're coming from a place where you can come out with the money or fundraise for the money. Still try to go, because it's a really great place to meet people and everything else. And I think I made so many connections at the AIDS conference and everything else. And I think also during the conference, I was in school, and so I kind of used some of the stuff that I learned at the conference and some of my university work and everything else. And so I think it's very important. And I think for me, being a Black trans woman and a key population that's impacted by HIV and stigmatized by HIV, it is important to have your voice at that table and to speak and to get those resources. And it's really amazing to see trans women, and for me, it was really amazing to see trans women from India speak and gave this powerful speech talking about how trans women are sometimes categorized as MSM, men who have sex with men, which we're not, and we have our own validity and research that is specific to our needs. And so I think that was a very great quote that I use all the time now from this person from India. And it was really nice to see people from Brazil. It was really nice to see individuals from other parts of the world instead of the U.S. And so I think for me, it was really great. And also the 26th conference in Australia was really hard for, I think, me and other people, because we lost a great person who spent most of their time doing this really great HIV policy work and gave out this pamphlet, and who did an abstract for the conference, got denied, and later on passed away. And I think that was tough. And when we spoke out at the AIDS conference, we were kind of like bombarded by individuals saying that that was not true. But we know from lived experience that sometimes trans individuals face barriers when it comes to these large conferences and everything else. And so I'm going to end with that, and I'm going to let anyone else pick up from where I left off at.
Hi. Monica, I don't know if you realize this. I don't know where you're at in the world, but your camera was turned off. So
no, it's perfect. I'm great. My camera's turned off because I just leave the gym.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm not counting.
So that's fine then. So I just encourage everyone to use the chat feature and ask us questions. And I'm going to speak in Spanish for a moment, just in case they're listening in. We do have some Spanish speakers in our audience. I think they're coming from Latin America. Y quiero decirles que ya tenemos la pregunta sobre la necesidad de modificar el perfil y que ustedes necesiten aplicar por una beca. Y yo quiero preguntarles si ustedes pueden entender inglés, puedo contestar en inglés, o si necesito hablar un poco en español. Entonces, si ustedes pueden entender inglés, por favor, hay que escribir algo para que sepamos. So I just asked the Spanish speakers who asked the specific question. Their specific question was that they need to modify their profile and they would like to apply for a scholarship. So I'm happy to answer that question as we go along, but I'm not sure if they can understand what I'm saying in English. So hopefully they'll answer in the chat either way. So
Okay.
what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to screen share and I'm going to walk people through actually setting up a profile and show all quickly how the various things you can apply for. And then what we want to do is spend the rest of the time answering your question. And
Is there anybody get some more teriyaki sauce? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to screen share now, and everyone, can you see the screen? Let me just check with people.
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Jaylee, is it legible?
It's popping back and forth, but I think that might be because Monica's microphone is still on. Maybe if you turn it on mute, Monica, then it'll stay.
I'm trying to get it to mute. I don't understand how to get it back to mute because I'm using my phone.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. It might be a little microphone icon with a slash through it somewhere. And on mine, it's red, but I don't know what, phone you're using. It's the color is red for me, but.
Okay, I think I got it. So let me talk in.
Okay. Yes, Monica, you are muted. All right, everyone. So the first thing that you need to do to apply for the conference, and by the way, the conference is going to be in July in Amsterdam. So it's July 2018 in Amsterdam. So that's what we're aiming for. And the other thing that you need to know is all the deadlines to apply are February 5th. So it's coming up very soon. And when I say February 5th, I mean it's better in the US that we get it in the morning because their cutoff time is European time, which is a few hours ahead of us. So if we leave it until midnight our time, they will not accept our applications. So February 5th, get it in the morning and you should be good. Okay, so I'm going to set up a totally new profile. I've made my screen larger so you can see it. I'm going to, the first thing you do is you type in an email. So ours is HIV/AIDS BPPP. Oh, hang on. I have to set up a new conference profile. I'm sorry. So I don't have a conference profile, which will be the situation for most of you. So as you can see, I'm typing in HIV/AIDS BPPP@gmail.com. So you'll type in your own email and then you hit submit. You've got to press that little I agree, and then you hit submit. So right now, the only thing we have is the conference profile, and you need to fill this out before they will let you go any further. And this can be a bit intimidating, so this is why I wanted to do this. And they'll prompt you, as you see a little prompt just came up on the screen, you put in your first name. In my experience, I've been able to use any name. If you're worried about your identity, I've used any name for people and for anyone who might have a reason to not put their ID name down. And then later on, if you get a scholarship, you can speak to the scholarship committee and give them your ID name at that time. So in this case, we'll just put down not my, and then the last name, ID name, in case that's an option you want to do. So don't be put off by the name that they want. No one's monitoring this in terms of whether or not it's your ID name at this point. Then the next is gender. They give you the option of male, female, transgender. So I'll put down female. And then you notice that some of these have got the little red dot by them. That means that they're essential. You don't need to put in your passport number. You don't need to put in your date of birth at this time, but you do have to put in your nationality. So in this case, not my ID name, the name of the person who we're filling this out for, I'm going to put down, I think, the United States. So scroll down, there's the United States. And that's all I need to put in this section at this time. If you have a passport, you want to put it in right now, fine. If you don't have a passport and you need to get one, contact one of our network of sex worker organizations. We'll try and help. Follow up with us afterwards if getting a passport's a barrier, and we'll do what we can. So then we scroll down to key populations. And something that's important to know with this conference is they give scholarships and access to people who are from what they consider key populations. So this is a good place where you could indicate who you are. So in this case, not my ID name she is going to say she's a sex worker, right? I understand why people may not want to say that. It is optional to put this down, but with a scholarship, they tend to give scholarships to people from key populations. And then do you consider yourself to be, and I'm going to put down prefer not to answer, your sexuality. Zero status, I think they do, there is a priority for people living with HIV for scholarships and whatnot, but that's everyone's decision based on their own safety. So not my ID name is going to say that she prefers not to disclose. Once again, that's your choice. They need an email. So in this case, it's HIV/AIDS BPPP at gmail.com. Then I confirm the email, HIV/AIDS BPPP at gmail.com. You can put an alternative email over there if sometimes you're like me and you lose your email, but it's not essential. They ask for your telephone, but it's not essential. You could put that in later. An address, you can put down the address of an organization. You don't have to put down your home address. You just maybe somewhere where a letter might reach you if they were trying to tell you had a scholarship maybe. But it doesn't have to even be your actual address. The main thing they would need this for is if they were writing you a letter so you could get a visa or something like that. But once again, you can always update that later. So we're just going to put 8, how about 9, not my street. And then you'll put postcode 10025. I think that's a New York postcode, so we'll put New York. And then you have to put the country down because it's required, United States. Now this, to scroll down to the bottom, this is a question that's going to throw a lot of people. Your organization, you don't have to have a paid job at the organization, but they require an organization. So if you need to list an organization and you don't have a paid job at an organization, speak to your local sex worker or trans organization and see if they might be able to, just let you list an organization. So in this case, not my ID is going to put down best practices, policy project. And the type of organization, usually you could put down a non-governmental organization. That's a good one. That would cover just about anything. Most of the groups we're working with are non-government organizations or a grassroots community-based organization. So just pick one that works and do not let the organization be a barrier. You have to fill this out, but you don't have to be a paid staff member. You just need to have some kind of organizational home. And most of us who are working on things in the community usually have an organization we're affiliated with in some way and will help us out. And, you know, you can always chat to best practices. Maybe we can be your affiliated organization if you've worked with us in any capacity in the past. Profession. Now, this one is confusing to me because you can't actually list sex worker here. And, you know, not my ID name would like to identify as a sex worker here, but that's not listed. So you could put activist or advocate. Maybe you're working as a community-based researcher. Maybe you're working on policy research. You could be doing some kind of healthcare outreach. But if you want to take it to the max, you could put out other, and then you could put in not my ID name, it's going to put down sex worker. But that's her choice. There are many other options. And once again, do not be intimidated by this because many of these will apply to you. Just pick one that seems good and you know, or shoot us an email and we can bounce around what might work for you. So let me type in the password. I think I'm going to put AIDS. Oops. I'm going to put down AIDS conference and then AIDS conference. Looks like I missed one of the, oh, I had to choose a state and my password didn't match. So choose the state. New York. And let me do this. I'm just going to put down conference actually. Okay, I got through. So now we're getting into, if you see up here, there's a tab. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so you can all see it. If you see up here, it says user details. That's what we just filled in. Then you can come to the overview. You can always come back to this when you log into your profile, okay? You can come back to any of these sections, right? That always trips me up because I can never find a way to get back. So we're in the overview. Hang on, let me just try and make my screen smaller. There we go. So right now we're in the overview. And what you find in the overview is a way to apply for many things that are important to the conference. You can apply for an abstract, which is in the main conference, which is what Monica referred to. So the abstract is separated out. It's quite expensive to get into. It's can be a little intimidating for some people. You have to show your badge to enter most times. And I think they've changed the Global Village to be that way too. But primarily the main conference has presentations made up by researchers, scientists, academics. However, from the community, we push very hard to submit abstracts and get in so that the perspectives of the community come into that space and influence what scientists and other researchers are doing. And in my experience out in the Global Village, there's something called the Sex Worker Networking Zone, and there's also the Trans Networking Zone. And in those zones, which is where sex workers and trans people come together, it's very supportive. And everybody will know if you have an abstract accepted and if you're going to be presented in the big giant conference. And everybody will come from the communities, will come in and support you and cheer, because this division between scientists and the community is a false one. And, you know, we want to support people from the community presenting in that space as well. Having said that, it's not easy to get an abstract accepted if you don't have a mainstream qualification, such as a higher degree, but it's still possible and we have ways to work around that. So I'm just Jay Lee has been helping a lot of people with abstracts into the main conference, and we can answer questions on that, but I'll run through the other areas. You can also apply for the Global Village. This tends to be a much friendlier place to present. It's much more open. If you don't have a mainstream degree, you can, it's more, if you're a peer educator or an advocate, it's easier for you to be accepted here. So I'm just going to click on the Global Village tab and show you what is available there. So here we are, and then you click on the tab, and then you click. Oh, I needed to enter my telephone number. For real? Let me go back to user details. All right. Overview. Okay, Global Village. All right, it's not letting me enter. Let me just, I'll fix that in a minute. But when you are able to enter the Global Village, there's various options. You can apply to do a workshop there, a performance. There are also applications for networking zones that usually doesn't apply to individual activists. And there's one other zone that I can't remember right now. Usually what you would apply for is a workshop or a performance, a cultural activity. And you just scroll through and you write down what your workshop is going to be about and what you're going to do in it and the outcomes. If you're from the sex worker community, you might want to make sure that you mention which communities you're working in and talk about how you're addressing HIV and, you know, make it lively and exciting so people would want to accept it and want to come. The other option I wanted to show you is there is a second type of workshop. This workshop is in the main conference. So there's workshops in the Global Village and there's workshops in the main conference. I would advise you that if you're going to apply for a workshop in the Global Village, you do a very similar one for the main conference, because who knows? You could also be able to offer a workshop to the doctors and scientists and educate them in the same way. So why not? The final thing I want to tell you about applying is that in order to be eligible for a scholarship, you need to click on this and apply for a scholarship. Let me see if it lets me get in. It's saying I need the date of birth. So there's a few things I need to put into the conference profile in order to show you how that works. And I will do that in just a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to tell you all that in order to be eligible for a scholarship, you need the following things. You need to tell them that you represent a community that's important to them. And in this case, it would be sex working communities or trans communities or somehow related to communities impacted by HIV. You know, they also give scholarships to students and researchers. So, you know, depending on how you represent, you know, you can go in a number of ways, but they need to make some decision that you're going to bring something to the conference and then bring something back to your community, whatever that may be. The second thing that you need, according to the AIDS conference and the people who are deciding, is you need to be the lead presenter on a successful abstract, Global Village submission, or a workshop submission. You can apply with friends and put down multiple authors, but only the lead author will be eligible for a scholarship. And when you apply for a scholarship, you need to, there's an option in there to link your scholarship application to one of your abstract or submission applications. So it's important to do that so that you are fully in the running for a scholarship. You need to know as well that you can apply for as many of these as you want. You can do an abstract submission, a Global Village submission. You can do a performance submission. You can do, oh, that's right. The other thing in the Global Village was like a booth. You can apply for a booth to sell things or to have your group represented. You know, apply for as many as you want. And, you know, then let them decide what they're going to accept or deny. And it's important that you apply for as many as you think you can, because if you are successful, you are much more likely to get the scholarships. Something else that's important to know that we really wanted to convey to you tonight is scholarships are transferable. So say 3 people from your group apply for a scholarship, and one person gets it who doesn't really need it or makes a decision that they can't go. You know, there are many reasons. And one of the reasons might be that generally speaking, in our experience, transgender leaders of color do not get given scholarships and speaking opportunities, right? There's a barrier there in our experience. So say a cisgendered person in your organization has applied for a scholarship and a presentation and has gotten both of them. You as an organization or individual may say, I want to transfer my scholarship and speaking opportunity to my transgender colleague, for example, and you can do that. Scholarships are transferable, and speaking opportunities or workshop opportunities are also transferable. When they accept your application, you will get an email saying, please go back into the system and please update the key speaker. And when you get a scholarship, you can also speak to the scholarships committee and say, I would like to transfer my scholarship to somebody else. They will do it so long as that person takes up your speaking opportunity. And we have done this in order to ensure that key leaders got to the conference and were able to go. So I'm going to stop for a minute and see if there are any questions and see if I can fix this conference profile. I'm going to jump out. Hang on one second. I do have a question, but let me jump out and just see if I can fix the conference profile. As you see, the conference profile is a challenge even for us, and we've done it a whole bunch of time. So I'm back here. Jaylee, my question is, you wanted me to talk about the various tracks. Was that an audience question or something you felt needed to be conveyed?
That was on for me. It was a kind of a question I came in just initially looking on, and it was a little confusing. So that's a me maybe question or you know, kind of touch upon type situation.
All right. Yeah, and I'm you know, the tracks are very, very complicated as well. And let me just see if I can fully get into the system, because when we can give you an example of how the tracks work, I think that would make a lot more sense. So, Monica, do you have anything to add while I try and fix our profile?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. So, anything I'd like to add? I think it's because like it's very important to link your just like you said, to link your abstract with your application, because if your abstract gets accepted, more likely you get a scholarship, and I think it's very important, like, to talk about like the passport. Like when I first applied for the AIDS conference, I didn't have a passport, and I got approved for a scholarship, and I needed my passport to book my flight. So it took, and they gave me like 2 months. They gave me like 2 weeks to get my passport. And once I got the passport, I gave it to them so that they can book my flights. And so I think it is, if you don't have a passport right now and you're working on getting one, work on getting one. Even though if you get approved, they might just hold off and just, you tell them like, I'm working on getting passport so that you can keep your scholarship and they won't give it away. Just say, hey, it's going to take 2 weeks to get my passport in. And so I will have my passport number within 2 weeks. And it depending on like how long it takes you for wherever country you're at, and how long the passport and what the passport procedure is. And I think if you're listening to the U.S. and you're a trans person, for me, it was a little bit running around to get my passport and to get my everything because I need to get my birth certificate. I needed to get my gender, my name change, and my gender marker change on my state ID, and that allowed me to get a passport with the correct gender marker on my state ID, and so they didn't go off my birth certificate. So it's really in the U.S. It depends on where you're from, and if you're trans, if you're someone with trans, on the procedures of getting a passport. And so sometimes, like, they might say, well, you have to dress more masculine if you're trans, and it depends. But for me, it was just a little bit running around, and I got my passport, and it's very it depends on where you're from. So make sure once you get off this call, look up the procedures to get a passport if you don't have a passport. And if you're trans, look it up and contact organizations that will probably help you out with that. Like PJ said, they probably will help you out.
Okay, Monica, great news. I got the system operating so we can enter to see the different tracks and everything. And boy, is this complicated. We almost are, our hour is almost up. But let me just put us back on the screen so we can see, we can go in and see the actual, just going back to the application window. There we go. Please yell if you can't see what I'm doing here. So by the way, I entered a phone number and it made me put a plus sign in at the beginning. That was the problem. And it made me enter a birth date. And once again, you can put in any birth date and any phone number. They're unlikely to check it. It only really becomes important. In fact, they're not going to check it. It only becomes important should they need to communicate with you about a scholarship or something like that. And I can't even see any reason why they need your date of birth. So that's sort of irrelevant. We also got a comment from the live chat that also cisgendered people of color are also very unlikely to get accepted and get scholarships. And that certainly is true. And, you know, what we've very much been wanting to convey to folks out there in the community is, you know, together, if we pool our resources and apply in various ways across organizations, we can break through some of these discriminatory structures that we see at this conference. And the conference definitely needs to change. And that's something that we protested on the podium back in 2016, and they argued back at us and said that what we had observed was not true, but actually it is true. Our experience with Sharma's Outlaw and her applications being rejected totally confirm what is going on there. So, you know, the conference and the structure needs to change, but in the meantime, we can pool resources and get resources to people who would really benefit from this opportunity. So let's jump into the abstracts. So the abstracts is for the main conference. And so you click on that tab and then you click to enter the abstract system. And I know Jay Lee's been working on this a real lot. You see it comes up My Abstracts, and then you click on this button that says Create. I won't be able to tell you everything from this, but here are the, and I'll try and make this bigger. Here are the, where it starts to get confusing and a challenge. And Jay Lee's really been studying this, and Jay Lee can certainly help you go through this system if you want to get individual mentoring. So the first one is option A. It's from research, and option 2 is from lessons learned. So if you're involved in community-based research in your organization, perhaps you've been collecting outreach data and have noticed something very important. Perhaps you are involved in a formal research project. Perhaps you've done interviewing with people. You know, those are all examples of research, so you would choose option 1. Option 2 is for, you know, observations that we might have made just in the course of implementing a policy, a program, or a project. So I'm going to click that one, and I'm going to then click Save. And then categories. I think this might have been what you were referring to, Jaylee. Let's have a look. Ah, yes, here are the tracks. So this is very intimidating, and usually the best idea is to look it over and just pick whatever works. I remember doing these applications with Shamus when we were doing it, and it was blowing my mind. And, you know, at the end of the day, they just want you to click something. When I've been a reviewer of abstracts, which I've done 2 times, I don't recall ever seeing this as important information. So this is just a gate that you need to open and press on something that kind of works for you. In this case, let's have a consideration. So I haven't done clinical research. I haven't done epidemiology. So I'm going to click social and political research, law, policy, and human rights. So let me click on that one. And then what policy issue did I work on? So let me see. And you see, it's very challenging, but I would click on, let's say, human rights. Okay, so you see, it's a barrier, but we're going to keep on going. And then I'm going to look at this, human rights of people living with HIV and key and vulnerable populations. That would work for me, right? Stigma and discrimination in specific settings, right? That could apply to sex workers that were discriminated against. So, you know, just click through and you'll probably find one that works for you. I'm just going to click on human rights. Then, you know, there's a lot of other options down in here. Don't be intimidated. These will be in everything you apply for. Key population, we're going to put sex workers. Another key population, we're going to put people in prisons and other closed settings. And then how about, I don't know, people who inject drugs. Whatever applies to you. A title, make sure to mention HIV in your title. That's important to them. Background, you'll talk about the research that went in the past. You describe what you've been doing. And then lessons learned are very important. So you'll say, we learned that sex workers cannot protect themselves because condoms are used as evidence, and we learned that we need to change this policy in the following ways. Your conclusion, changing policies is very hard because the police don't want to change. That's how you're going to be writing. And then you'll click these other options. So this is just some sort of ethical guideline, not applicable. The study does not include human subjects, so I'll tick that one. And then I'm going to hit save. So that's the overview of an abstract for the main conference. Let's have a quick look before we time out. I'm going to take us back to, I want to show you the Global Village. So I've clicked through. We're making a new submission. You see it's an exhibitions booth. If you click on that one, an NGO booth is where you get a small booth and you and your organization can sit there and talk to people walking by. I've done that, it's not bad. If you want to sell things, you can have a marketplace booth. You're off in a separate section, you can sell t-shirts and things like this. It can be a way to make money during the conference. Networking zone, we typically won't click on because that's for like regional organizations to do. A Global Village session, this is probably one that will be of interest to a lot of people. You can do a workshop, a panel discussion. These are all good. So and before I go to there, let me show you the cultural activity. These are great for performers and art creators. You can apply for a film screening, an art exhibit, a live performance. So those options are also available. And I think, at many conferences, you can't actually apply to do those things. At the AIDS conference, you can. So I'm going to click on Global Village. I'm going to say workshop. I'm going to hit apply. Oh, sorry, 60 minutes, apply. And then you see it's pretty much the same format as the abstract, but a little less intimidating. You don't have to do all of those intimidating tracks. And once again, this is the Global Village. It tends to be a more friendly, open place. We also want our community members to be getting in there with the scientists, but this is actually where most of the education occurs and is for me, the more relevant part of the conference. So you put in your title. It could be a workshop about how to keep your condom safe when you're being policed, how to keep yourself and your condom safe when you're being policed could be the title. You put down what the objectives are, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Are you going to have a discussion, presentation? Is it going to be interactive? And what people are going to learn. You can put down the speakers. And then once again, your target audience. In this case, we could say we're going to teach donors. And we could say we're going to then teach peer educators. And then the populations, which are just the same. So sex workers, Regional focus, if it's specific to a region, that's great. If not, just put not applicable. So we're almost finished. So I want to just wrap up and find out if there's anything that Monica or Jay Lee would like to add.
I think you covered everything from my perspective that I can think of.
Monica, any final words or thoughts?
No, I think I'm good. I think I answered it. If anyone has any questions for me, I'm available to answer the questions about the conference or anything else. And so just let me know.
One thing I will say is because of the time constraints, I'd be happy to answer as many questions as I can, but I can only mentor sex workers in particular. So that's the one thing that is kind of limiting. If you are a sex worker, we'll do our best, and even folks who are not, I'll do my best. But our priority at BPPP is for sex workers and representing our community there. So that's the only thing.
And I want to say we got a comment from an audience member who said, to be honest, most of the great stuff does happen in the Global Village, and that is true. What we are saying is there are barriers to the main conference. We want people to try and break through those barriers. We want to be there applauding you as you speak your truth to power. Monica and I have definitely done that, and we'll probably never be invited back, but we were prepared to go out in Shamus Outlaw's name, and that was fantastic. And, it's generally a supportive environment for community members when we do break through and we do go into the main conference. Don't be intimidated by the tracks. We can definitely answer the questions on that. And also make sure you apply for several things. So that way you've got a good chance. And then if you're the lead author, your scholarship application is going to go better. We didn't, or it's going to be in the running, should I say, if you're the lead author. We didn't really cover what's going to happen in the applying for scholarships, but it's pretty straightforward. You talk about, what you're going to get out of the conference and what you will contribute to your community when you come back. So it's pretty similar to other scholarship applications that you might have done. But be sure you have to do the scholarship application in that form in order to be eligible. It's the only way, and it's all due February 5th. So I think I'm going to say good night and thank you to my co-presenters.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Follow up with us at HIV/AIDS BPPP@gmail with any other questions you might have. And, you know, this system of applying to the AIDS conference is intimidating. There are barriers there for a reason, and let's collectively try and break through them. And I'm so glad that we had this chance to talk to you today.